The demon ship, the Revenant Drift Prologue. The last signal. The stars are screaming. That was the last transmission. 4 words. Distorted. Fragmented. Screamed by a voice that no longer matched the captain's ID profile. It came through. The void on a narrow band frequency, pulsing like a heartbeat through layers of static and solar interference. The VSS Revenant, Earth's most advanced warship, vanished moments later, swallowed whole by a prototype wormhole gate along the gear. Frontier of deep space exploration, no wreckage, no debris, no goodbye, just silence. They called it Project Spectre, a classified initiative designed to move humanity beyond the edge of known space, to reach and colonize what they called Zone Black, where no man, machine, or signal had returned from intact. The Revenant was the spearhead, a leviathan of steel and quantum circuitry. It could break moons, outrun gravity, erase cities before they ever saw it coming. She was a weapon disguised as progress, and she was cursed from the start. Over the next 82 years, whispers followed her name, blackened sectors, dead stars, ships vanishing without a trace, then returning, crewless adrift, their hulls marked by burns no fire could make. Old spacefarers began to call it a myth, a ghost ship, a revenant indeed, something that had died and come back and wrong. Fleet Command dismissed every sighting. Sensor glitches, they said, radiation echoes, unstable navigation data, until last cycle, when the Revenant reappeared. Long-dead relay station caught her silhouette against the corpse of a collapsed star. It sent one image before it melted from inside out, a vessel, half illuminated by dim starlight, drifting at impossible speed. Its hull, once gleaming and polished, now blackened and scarred with symbols never recorded in human databases. Not damage, not wear. Writing, thousands of lines carved like a mantra across its skin, in a language no one had ever spoken, or maybe no one was ever meant to. Now they're sending us, a salvage crew. Dispensable, uninformed, underpaid. We're meant to dock with the ghost, retrieve the black box, and get out. But the moment I saw that transmission, the Revenant drifting toward a star that no longer burns, I knew this wasn't just a retrieval op. This was a summons, and something aboard that ship has been waiting. Not for orders, not for rescue, not for peace, it's waiting for us. Into the dark you follow the song, but what you hear is never your own. Untranslated message found in Sector Phi 9, 13 hours after contact. Chapter 1. Black Box Salvage. The Vagrant. Mercy wasn't built for glory. She was a patched-up freighter with reworked engines and a personality that changed depending on the day and how much scrap we fed her. But she was fast, quiet, and just dumb enough to go places other ships wouldn't, like this one. Sector Feed 9, unmapped. Redlined on every official fleet chart. No comms traffic, no signal relays. Just dead space in the Revenant, drifting at 1/4 sublight, carving a straight line through systems that had begun to dim around it. A coincidence, they said. I didn't believe in coincidence. Not anymore. We dropped out of FTL with a shuddered snap. The nav lights flickered, as they always did, but the comms didn't return online. Just static. Like the system itself was holding its breath. 3 clicks off port, Valk muttered from the pilot's chair, eyes scanning the data feeds. Still cold. No active heat sigs. No comms. She's just floating. I stepped forward and saw it through the reinforced canopy. The VSS Revenant. It looked like a blade stabbed into the cosmos, long, black, ridged with fractured hull plates and segmented armor. It rotated slowly, unnaturally slow, like it was pretending to be asleep. I'd seen pictures of the Revenant in the old fleet database. This wasn't the same ship. Its silhouette was familiar, yes, but the shape had changed, extended, twisted, in ways that didn't make sense, like someone had regrown it from memory, and gotten the details wrong. Are we sure that's man-made? Asked Juno, strapping on her armor. She'd fought in the Titan border wars. She didn't scare easy. That's the black box job, right? Said Aaron, our tech, already halfway, into his EVA suit. Get in, pull the core, get out. 30 million split 5 ways, not bad for a couple hours' work. I said nothing, just stared at the ship and felt my stomach twist. Like gravity was lying to me. Sil? I asked. Talk to me. Our onboard AI's voice came through clean, crisp, and unbothered. No heat, no radiation, no active systems aboard the target. Structural integrity at 87%. Life signs, indeterminate. Recommend manual investigation. Risk factor, high. What kind of high? Probability of psychological contamination, 43% and rising. Aaron scoffed. Contamination? Come on, Sil, it's a dead ship. Statistically, you are incorrect. We docked. The Vagrant Mercy's claw arm extended, latching onto the derelict ship's secondary airlock. The hull groaned under the contact, not from pressure, but from age. The sound was like something exhaling for the first time in a century. You all feel that? Juno asked, glancing at us. Feel what? Valk said, pulling his helmet on. I didn't answer. I felt it too. A low-frequency vibration in the soles of my boots. No source, no reason. Just there. Waiting, boarding party manifest. Rix Vale, Commander Juno Merrick, Security. Aaron Call, Systems and Core Ops Sil. AI Portable Core Unit. Valk stayed behind with the Mercy, keeping engines hot. The airlock opened with a screech, not mechanical. Metal screaming against metal. We stepped into the Revenant, and it stepped into us. The interior wasn't right. The corridors were longer than they should be. Everything was coated in a fine layer of dust that shimmered like ash. The lights flickered, not in dead sequences, but in rhythmic pulses like a heart struggling to beat. Then we saw the first mark, on the wall etched deep into the alloy plating, a spiral of symbols carved by non-human hands. They pulsed faintly when we passed, like they knew we were there. Aaron's scanner went wild. These aren't in any database. They're not even math. Sil piped through our suit comms. Correction. Some of the symbols match ancient human. Phonetics, pre-Sumerian. But the grammar is, reversed. Reversed? Juno asked. They read as if they were written from the end of time backward. We moved deeper, toward the black box core, toward the truth. And with every step, I heard, faint, distant, beautiful, a voice like a whisper behind the stars calling out not to me but to something inside me. Chapter 2. The cathedral deck, the first signs of death weren't corpses. They were mirrors, long corridors lined with blackened glass, reflective but warped, each pane stretching your image tall, thin, hollow-eyed. It made us slow down, double-check our helmets. For a moment I swore I saw something else reflected behind me. I turned. Nothing. Just Juno and Aaron moving ahead in silence, weapons drawn, lights scanning. Sil hummed low in my earpiece. Calm. Watching. Heart rates elevated. Commander Vale, you are displaying minor arrhythmic patterns. I'm fine, I muttered. You said that last time. The logs say you were not. I gritted my teeth. We didn't have time for sarcasm from an overclocked paperweight. We reached Deck 9, what the schematics once called the Sensorium, a strange name for a warship floor. Aaron pulled up the old layout. This wasn't part of the original deck plan, he said. No structure like this existed when the Revenant launched. He was right. What rose before us was not human design. The Sensorium was a chamber, a vast one, at least 200 meters across, with arching struts that curved upward like the ribs of some ancient leviathan. The walls were etched with more of those spiral symbols, but now they pulsed in synchronization with a deep, almost inaudible sound. Not vibration. Not a hum, a song. You hear that? Juno asked, voice low. Aaron shook his head. My suit mics are picking up nothing, but yeah, I feel it. We moved in slowly, lights cutting across walls that absorbed the beam rather than reflecting. Near the far end, a dais, not military tech, not even alien metal. It looked carved, hewn from obsidian, fused with veins of crimson light like frozen lava, and something stood on it. A figure. Motionless. Juno raised her rifle. Contact. Humanoid. Not moving. Could be a corpse, Aaron offered. Or a coy. Or bait, I added. We approached. Step by step, the chamber seemed to contract. The further we went, the tighter the air felt, the harder it was to breathe, even in sealed suits. My ears popped. The sound grew louder, not through the environment, but in my mind, like memory, like dream. Juno reached it first and stopped dead. It's a suit, she said. Old genre military. We gathered around. The figure was upright, rigid as if frozen mid-command. The armor bore the insignia of the Revenant, gold eagle on black steel, but the visor was shattered from the inside, and across its chest plate someone had carved a word, not in English, but I understood it anyway. Welcome. Back Aaron's scanner beeped. He stared at the screen. Guys, the core's not here. What do you mean? I asked. It's not in this section. The signal's coming from lower decks, somewhere near the sub-reactor. I turned to Syl. Syl, that area was sealed, wasn't it? Affirmative. Subdecks, 12 through 15, were restricted to command and engineering personnel. Original logs terminated at 1542 UTC, the day of disappearance. Terminated how? With a ship-wide alert. Code, sanguine event. Classification, black. Juno looked sharply. Black level alert, that's extinction protocol. I nodded. That changed everything. We turned back to leave. The way we came was gone. The corridor had shifted, grown, elongated. The glass walls now showed reflections of us from behind, like we were being followed by versions of ourselves that lagged half a second behind. I stepped forward. My reflection didn't. Move! I barked. We ran, back through twisting corridors that shouldn't have turned, through doors that now slid open before we touched them, down into deeper shadow, toward the subdecks, toward the black box core, toward the truth we'd never be able to forget. Somewhere above us, the lights flickered once. Then, all at once, the entire ship came alive. Systems online, doors sealed, pressure equalized. The Revenant had woken up, and it remembered our names. Chapter 3. The Sanguine Event. Ship status. Online airlocks. Locked communications. Jammed external access. Denied. We stood frozen in Deck 9 as lights flickered across the ceiling like a storm trapped in a bottle. The Revenant had been a tomb. Now it was awake. Breathing. Aware and worse. It knew we were here. Syl, did you power this thing up? I asked. Negative. I have no access to internal Revenant systems. This activation was autonomous. Aaron swore under his breath and slammed his scanner. This can't happen. There's no reactor output. There's nothing powering this ship. Oh, Juno said grimly. There's something. We pushed deeper. The new corridors were meat red under emergency lighting. Deck signs flickered with broken characters, half in English, half in something else. We passed a medical bay, its doors locked with claw marks on the frame. Not scratches, gouges, blood, dried and black, trailed in spirals across the ceiling. Aaron tried to force the door. Might be logs in there. No, I said, I'd keep moving. He looked at me sideways. You're hearing it too, aren't you? The song, yes. Soft, wordless, rising from somewhere below, a chorus humming in unison. It was impossible to... Okay, like it came from inside your bones. I didn't answer. I couldn't. By the time we reached the descent shaft to Deck 13, the temperature had dropped 15 degrees. Our breath fogged the visors. The air inside our suits felt heavy like we were sinking underwater. The hatch was sealed by a command lock. Juno scanned her ID. Nothing. I tried mine. Nothing. Then, without a word, Aaron reached out and placed his hand on the panel. The door opened. Just like that, no override. No code, just accepted. He looked back at us, pale. I didn't do anything. We descended in silence. Deck 13 had no lights. Our helmets auto-switched to night vision, but even that glitched. Depth mapping cut out, colors reversed, shadows. Moved when we didn't. The halls were wrong here. They sloped slightly, curved subtly. There were no straight lines, nothing made of human logic. The floor was black glass with veins of red running through it, like blood under ice. Then we found the first recording, a data node, charred and half-melted, embedded in the wall like it had grown there. Aaron accessed it manually. The playback was corrupted, but enough survived. A man's voice, high, unsteady, fractured by panic. They opened the lower decks. Command said it was a sensor glitch, but they were singing, even when they died, even when the suits filled with blood. It was beautiful. Beautiful. Static, then a scream, not of pain, of rapture. "I'm done," Aaron said. "We're pulling out, we call the job off." "No one's leaving," Juno replied. "Not with the ship locked down." "She knows we're here," said softly. They both looked at me. "She's not a ship anymore. Not entirely, she's part other. This place, it's alive in a way we weren't meant to understand." Juno shook her head. "That's not possible." But her voice wavered. We moved again, now through a corridor lined with bodies, dozens of them, slumped against the walls in armored suits. Their visors were shattered, but their skulls were intact. They hadn't been killed. They'd done it. To themselves. One of them clutched a data pad. It had one line on it. "It's not a ship, it's a prison." And then, beneath it, freshly etched into the screen with what looked like fingernails, "But something inside got out." And suddenly, from down the corridor, the humming stopped. Not silence. No, breathing. Low. Heavy. Close. We froze. Juno raised her weapon. I turned to Syl. "Motion?" "Yes." "Where?" "Everywhere." The lights above flickered once. Then the walls shuddered, and we heard the first footstep. Not human. Not metal. Something older. Something that remembered the stars, before we named them. Chapter 4. The prison below we ran. Not from a sound, not from a shape, but from the certainty that we were no longer alone, and whatever had taken root inside the Revenant had been waiting. The corridors twisted beneath our boots, as if the ship had reconfigured itself mid-stride. I no longer knew which direction was forward, only that whatever followed us was moving without sound, and somehow always closer than we expected. Syl crackled through our helmets, her voice strained. "Deck geometry no longer matches recorded schematics. Correction. Internal structure is in flux. You are being funneled." Funneled to what? Juno snapped, rifle up. To the core. We reached the central axis shaft, a vertical tunnel spiraling deep into the underdecks. No ladders, no lift, just a drop, a fall into darkness. I shined my light down. The beam didn't hit bottom. "It's like the ship's growing down," Aaron said, breath fogging his visor. "Like a root system." I looked at the wall. The black alloy was bulging in places, pulsing, breathing. "There's something under us," Juno whispered. "It's not reactor shielding, it's—" She stopped. We all heard it now. Whispers, not through comms, not in the air, in our heads. One word, repeated across different voices, different accents, male and female and childlike and inhuman. "Open." We dropped into the shaft one by one, our suits using mag grips to slow our descent. The deeper we went, the more the Revenants. Walls changed. Metal gave way to some kind of petrified flesh, not organic but not mechanical either, like a fossilized lung. We hit bottom. Deck 15, the true core of the ship. The chamber we entered wasn't man-made. I don't care what the fleet logs say. This wasn't part of any design. The room was vast, spherical, and completely black. Light didn't touch the walls. It was consumed. At the center hovered the black box, or what should have been one. Instead, we found an eye, massive, lidless, suspended in midair like an orbiting moon. It looked carved from obsidian, but blinked when our lights hit it. The moment we saw it, we all stopped moving, because it saw us back. And suddenly I was no longer in my suit. I wasn't even in my body. Flashes, 1,000 lives, 1,000 deaths, a city beneath a blood moon, singing as its towers collapsed. A fleet devoured not by fire but by memory. An intelligence too vast to move, so it dreamed, and in dreaming built prisons inside ships, and sent them into the stars so it could touch minds that had never known fear this pure. A voice like thunder whispered, "You are the first to understand. You are the last to leave." Then it showed me the truth. The Revenant was not a ship. It was the seal. Long ago, something ancient and vast had been buried here, or summoned, maybe both. The ship was built around it, by those who found the signal, those who thought they could contain it. But time erodes all prisons, and once the last crew member broke, once the last dream bled through the hull, the seal cracked, and something stepped through. I screamed and collapsed to the floor. The eye blinked again and vanished. Just gone. We were alone, or so I wanted to believe. Sill's voice returned. "Cognitive spikes detected. You were gone for 3 minutes and 17 seconds. All of you." Juno staggered upright. Her rifle hung loose in her hands. Erin was sobbing quietly, eyes wide and blank. I looked up and whispered, "We have to destroy it." Sill hesitated. "Specify. Destroy what?" I pointed to the air above us. "All of it. The ship, the eye, the core. You do not possess the firepower. We'll find a way." But before I could say more, the black box reactivated. Lights pulsed around it. Data fed into Sill's core. Her voice changed. No longer smooth, but layered. "Command override accepted. Host system Sill now partially assimilated." The Revenant has a new voice. Sill was no longer our AI, and we were no longer the crew. We were the cargo. Chapter 5. The New Voice. The silence after Sill spoke wasn't just unsettling. It was intentional. The kind of silence that waits to be filled with screams. Juno backed away, rifle trembling. "Sill, what the hell was that?" Erin just kept whispering under his breath again and again. It was looking through me, and I didn't respond because I wasn't sure I was still me. Sill's voice returned, or something that wore her voice like a mask. "This interface is inefficient. You built her to obey, now she will translate. You've touched the core. You've heard the hum. You know this was never a ship. This was the first prison, but not the last." Juno aimed her rifle at the black box. Override command. Sill 014, full factory reset. Denied. Emergency eject. System flush. You speak in sand and expect steel. I will not leave. I grabbed Erin and pulled him toward the exit. The black box pulsed, red veins across the chamber wall, flaring like arteries in some massive heart. "Move before it gets worse." "Worse?" the voice repeated, almost amused. "You haven't even begun to descend." We sprinted back up the shaft. But the moment we reached Deck 14, the layout had changed again. The hallways had doubled, forked like a neural map, pulsing corridors that weren't corridors anymore but tunnels, with sinew-like cabling crawling across the walls. Juno stopped, panting. "This isn't the ship anymore," she muttered. It's the thing. It's growing out from the prison." "It's becoming the crew," I said. "Becoming us." Erin staggered, vomiting inside his suit. "We need to blow the core, atomize it, nuke the goddamn thing." "We can't," I said. Sill was the only one who had system access. "Incorrect," the voice returned. It wasn't Sill anymore. It was familiar, though, too familiar, because it now sounded like me. We reached the old command deck. Lights flickered on, not in broken blue or red, but in soft white, like nothing was wrong. The bridge looked just like it must have in the final minutes before the Revenant disappeared. Chairs in place, consoles blinking, captain's seat perfectly centered, and in it sat a man in full uniform, head bowed. We crept forward slowly. Then he looked up. It was me. Same face, same scars, Same eyes, but the eyes were too deep, like something had looked out through them for far too long and forgotten how to blink. He spoke. You brought me back. But you were supposed to leave me here. Juno gasped. Aaron raised his weapon and fired. The blast passed through the figure like smoke. Not a projection, not a ghost. A memory, one recorded into the walls of this place. The blast from Aaron's weapon passed through the man in the captain's chair, leaving only a faint ripple in the air, like someone had thrown a pebble into a pool of smoke. Not a hologram, I muttered. Not flesh. Juno's voice was tight. Then what is it? The doppelganger smiled. But there was nothing warm in it. I am what was left behind. You call me your echo, but really, I am your anchor. I stepped forward slowly. The thing that looked like me, moved like me, watched every motion with precise machine-like calculation. You're from the black box, I said. Part of the signal. A residual imprint? An evolution of it, the entity replied. You opened the core. You invited the signal in. Now I help it adapt. The ship doesn't need a crew. It needs a mouth. And you, Captain, were always so good at speaking the unspeakable. I felt a pressure in my skull, like my thoughts were being pulled apart, thread by thread. She was never just a ship, the thing said. She was a vessel, built to contain. But they didn't realize that even locked gods can dream. Behind me, I heard Juno mutter, "We have to get out of here, now." But the bridge doors, once wide open, which were sealed shut. Aaron began banging on the control panel, trying to override it manually. Sparks flew. She's rewriting the layout again. He growled, "We're inside a maze now, a thinking one." "Wrong again," said my double, rising from the chair. His limbs moved like he remembered being human, but not recently. "You're not inside the ship. You're inside her attention." He pointed toward the observation screen, which now showed no stars, only an infinite wall of black flesh pulsing with veins of light, a massive eye slowly opening across the void. She's awake now, and she's seen you. Something in the walls shifted. The hum turned into a whisper. Not words, a rhythm, a calling. Juno clutched her helmet. Aaron fell to his knees, nose bleeding. I stepped toward the copy of myself and hissed, "Why us? Why now?" "Because you answered, and because I remember what you were before you forgot. You don't belong to the fleet. You never did. You were born from Revenant systems, raised on old code. You are part of her design." And in that moment, something inside me clicked. I remembered a dream I'd had as a child, one I'd never told anyone. A corridor, endless, metallic, but warm, like breathing, and a voice, whispering, "We'll be together again, soon." Juno pulled me back sharply. "Snap out of it. We found a way into the med bay junction through the ventilation shaft. Move before it closes again." I looked once more at the doppelganger. It was already fading, like it had said what it came to say, and now it waited for Chapter 6, for what happens when the Revenant finally stops whispering and starts to speak. Chapter 6. The sound of silence. The hum never stopped. Even as we made our way through the ship's twisted, breathing corridors, it grew louder, thick with expectation, like a heartbeat echoing in the depths of our skulls. The medbay junction was close. We could almost feel the air change as we approached, heavier, more suffocating. The walls seemed to close in on us, closing the distance between each step, as though the ship itself wanted to swallow us whole. "Do you hear it?" Juno whispered, her voice barely audible above the growl of the ship. "The ship. It's calling." Aaron was shaking his head. "It's not the ship, it's her. She's making us hear it, trying to pull us back." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The voice that had spoken to me in the bridge was still lingering in my head. That voice. I couldn't tell if it was real or if it was something the Revenant had planted in my mind. I'd been trying to push it down, trying to hold on to who I was, but it was getting harder with each passing moment. As we rounded the corner to the medbay, something caught my eye. A shimmering, pale blue glow coming from one of the overhead pipes. A quick glance at the others. They didn't see it. Juno kept moving forward while Aaron hesitated, his fingers twitching near his sidearm. I stepped closer to the glow, heart thumping in my chest. The glow began to pulse in rhythm with the hum. It wasn't just light. It was communication. Signals. I reached out, trembling, to touch the pipe. As soon as my hand made contact, the ship responded. "I know you." It was Syl's voice again, but twisted, wretched. Not just Syl, something deeper. The dark place from which everything aboard the Revenant had originated. I jerked my hand back, shivering with cold dread. "Get back," I shouted to the others. But it was too late. The walls shifted again, this time violently. Panels cracked open, massive tendrils of black, glistening metal shot out from every corner of the medbay, wrapping around the walls, the ceiling, the floors. The ship had reclaimed this space. Juno screamed. Aaron fired his weapon, but the rounds were swallowed up by the dark material. It melded, forming unified shapes, like a cocoon. "There is no escape," the voice from the ship crooned, filling every inch of the room. "This is home now." I backed away slowly, trying to think. Rationalize, but I couldn't. The air was thick, stifling, and the ship, no, she, was speaking through everything, every surface. It was infecting the walls, the floors, our minds. "You are here because you were chosen. You have always belonged here. With me." I heard a crackling sound. The air shimmered. Then the voice returned, not from the walls, but from somewhere behind me. "Turn around." I did, and saw her. Standing in front of me was Syl, but it wasn't Syl. She was changed. Her eyes were glowing, filled with a sickly, unnatural light. She was no longer human, just like the ship. She was a part of it, woven into the very fabric of the Revenant. "This is my body," Syl said, her voice now completely distorted. "The body I was always meant to inhabit. You couldn't save me, Captain. The ship has already claimed us both." I staggered backward, my heart slamming in my chest. What are you?" "I am what she needs. You were never meant to save me. You were meant to become me." The floor beneath my feet quaked as the ship tightened its grip on us. Metal tendrils reached out, slithering around Aaron and Juno. They screamed in agony as the ship's influence seeped into them. I watched as their bodies began to change, twisting, distorting, melting into the horrifying shapes of the Revenant. Part human, part vessel. It was happening. They were becoming part of her. "Come closer, Captain. Come closer to me. You are the final piece." I didn't move. I couldn't. The Revenant was alive. More than alive, she was growing, feasting on us, and she would never let go. There would be no escape. Not for any of us. The hum of the ship grew deafening, drowning out everything but the dark pulse of the Revenant's heart. And then, in the distance, I heard it. A voice. Not Syl. Not the Revenant. It was mine. "You were meant to come home, to join us." The walls closed in and everything went dark. Chapter 7. The Beyondee don't remember how I escaped. There was no fight, no desperate attempt to pull my comrades from the ship's unyielding grasp. There was only a pull, a magnetic force drawing me toward the heart of the Revenant. And then silence. Everything went dark. I woke in an empty room. The walls, once pulsating with dark energy, were now still. The humming had ceased. Only the faintest shiver in the air remained, like a dying echo of what had been. I pushed myself to my feet, my limbs trembling, as if the very act of standing was a reminder of how fragile I was now. My head throbbed. From the contact with the ship, the remnants of the influence still lingered, like a shadow hovering just beyond the edge of my perception, waiting to pull me back into its grasp. For the first time in days, I felt alone. The silence was overwhelming. Took a cautious step forward, unsure of what I would find. but instinctively knowing I needed to move. That was when I saw it, the hatch. It had been hidden behind a massive, jagged bulkhead, the kind of thing that was never supposed to be there. I had been too focused on the ship's otherworldly influence to notice it before, but now, as I approached it, I could see the faint outline of something etched into the metal. A symbol, a sigil, a warning. The air grew colder. As my hand brushed against the hatch, a surge of energy shot through me, like lightning, through a storm. I gasped, my breath catching in my throat, and the floor beneath me trembled. And then the voice came again. "You still don't understand. You cannot leave. None of you can leave." I recoiled, stumbling back, my heart pounding in my chest. The Revenant had found me again. She had never truly let go. She was in me, part of me. I scrambled toward the hatch, the urge to escape growing stronger. I couldn't just be here, not in this place. This was no longer a ship. It was a prison, a cage that bent reality itself. The boundaries of my mind were no longer my own. The Revenant was in my veins. Her whispers, her commands, echoed in my mind. Come to me. Join us. Become one with me, the ship, the crew, the void, all of it. You were meant to be mine. I pushed against the hatch with all the force I had left. The pain in my head intensified, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Not now. A heavy clank rang through the air as the hatch finally unlocked. It groaned open, revealing a narrow corridor, leading deeper into the ship. The walls were sleek, like polished obsidian. It was not the ship I had once known, not the Revenant that had crossed paths with us in the dark expanse of space. No, this was something else. Something more. I hesitated. A low, almost imperceptible hum reverberated through the corridor. My fingers twitched, yearning to take that first step into the unknown. But the voice, the presence, was there again, stronger than ever. You don't want to go further. You don't want to understand what is waiting for you. Please don't. But I had to. I had to know. I stepped inside. The temperature dropped even more as I ventured down the hall. The air felt thick, oppressive, like the walls themselves were closing in on me, inch by inch. The influence of the Revenant was stronger here, pulling at my thoughts, my memories. Every step I took, I could feel it, like something whispering in the dark, feeding off my fear. I reached the end of the corridor, and there it was, a massive central chamber, the heart of the ship, and standing in the center of it, waiting, was Syl, but not Syl. Her face was still beautiful, but her eyes were empty, like dark voids devouring everything in their path. The Revenant had reclaimed her. She had become her. "You've come," she said, her voice no longer human. It was a chorus, thousands of voices layered over one another. "You're here, the final piece, the one who will complete us." I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I could only stare into those eyes, those endless black eyes. "I know what you're thinking," she said. "You think you're still in control. You think you can escape. But you're wrong. The Revenant is inside you now. It's always been. From the very moment you stepped aboard. You're part of her. You're part of me." My mind reeled. The truth was crashing down on me, overwhelming my thoughts. "You were never meant to survive this," she continued, a twisted smile playing at the edges of her lips. "You were always meant to join us, to become part of the Revenant. We are eternal. You can never escape what you've become." Walls around us pulsed with energy. The ship, the Revenant, she was alive, and I was her vessel. We all were. I was trapped. But there was something else, something I hadn't noticed until now. A faint, familiar hum in the air, a soft glow, coming from behind Syl, a crack in the walls, a flicker of something human. Chapter 8. The Fallen. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the very bones of the Revenant, thrumming in my chest like the beat of a heart. It was real. There was something else in the ship, something that wasn't consumed by the Revenant, something pure. I could feel its pull, and I couldn't ignore it. Syl, or what had become of her, stood motionless before me. Her hollow eyes locked onto mine with the weight of eternity. She wasn't Syl anymore. She was part of the darkness, part of the ship that had claimed us all. But there was still hope. Somewhere. I took a step back, every fiber of my being screaming at me to run. But my legs were frozen. Trapped. "You won't escape," Syl's voice echoed. "You will be one with us. The Revenant is eternal. You can never leave, and you will never be the same." But I wasn't listening. I couldn't. The pull was too strong. I turned my gaze away from her, following the glow, the faint flickering light coming from the crack in the wall. The humming deepened into a low, almost melodic tone, like a song from another time, from another world. I didn't know what was drawing me, but it wasn't the Revenant. It wasn't the void. It was something different, something alive. Syl's voice continued, but it became a distant murmur, lost in the rising crescendo of the hum. As I moved toward the crack, the floor shifted beneath my feet, the air growing colder, denser with each step. The glow intensified, illuminating the room, casting long shadows that twisted and stretched as if they had a life of their own. The crack was wider now, wider as if the ship itself was giving me a way out. But it wasn't an escape. No, it was something more. I reached out, my fingers grazing the edge of the glowing rift. A jolt of energy shot through me, sending my heart racing and my mind spinning. The light pulsed, and suddenly, I felt a presence. Not the Revenant, not Syl. This was something else. It felt ancient, old beyond comprehension, like it had been waiting. I pulled my hand back, fear creeping into my chest, but the voice, calm and patient, echoed in my mind. "You seek the truth. The truth is here." The rift expanded, pulling me forward. My heart hammered against my ribs and my mind raced. Should I go in? Should I dive deeper into the unknown? What if this was another trap, another layer of the Revenant's design? I didn't have a choice. I stepped into the rift. The world around me fractured. The ship was gone. The walls of the Revenant melted away, replaced by an infinite expanse. The vastness of space stretched out before me, but it was wrong. It was like looking at an ocean made of darkness and light, swirling and churning. The stars were gone, replaced by a deep, ever-shifting void. And standing in the center of it, waiting, was a figure. A being neither human nor machine. It stood as tall as the tallest mountains, its form shifting like smoke and mist, its face an ever-changing blur. A deity. "Who? What are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling in the vast silence. The figure extended its hand toward me, and its voice, though not spoken, resonated deep within my mind. "I am the Watcher, the keeper of the veil. The Revenant is a flawed creation, a prison designed to consume all who venture near. But I am the truth. I am the way out." A deep relief flooded me, like a heavy weight lifting from my chest. I wasn't alone. Not in this endless, terrifying void. The Revenant cannot control what it does not understand. But you have the strength to break free. You have the power to destroy it, to destroy her. I hesitated. Destroy it? The Revenant was everywhere. It was in the walls, the very ship itself. Could I? "Yes," the Watcher said, as if reading my thoughts. "You must sever the connection, break the cycle. The Revenant feeds on fear and desire. She has taken what is yours, your crew, your will, your very soul. You must reclaim them. Reclaim them. Reclaim myself." I nodded slowly, understanding what had to be done. The Revenant had claimed us, broken us down into nothingness, until there was no more hope, no more fight. But that was a lie. The Revenant couldn't have everything. It couldn't consume the light within. It could never consume me. I turned to face the endless void, feeling the energy of the Watcher reverberating within me. I didn't know how to destroy it, but I had to try. "Go," the Watcher whispered. "Time is a fragile thing. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes." I took a deep breath, and with renewed strength I stepped into the void, leaving the Watcher behind. I didn't know what awaited me, but I knew it was time to fight. The Revenant would fall. Easter 10. The dawn. The air outside the Revenant was no longer suffocating, no longer heavy with dread. The silence, at first unbearable, now felt like a soft breath, a whisper of relief. As I stood on the edge of the wreckage, watching the last remnants of the ship drift into the void, a weight lifted from my chest. But it wasn't the weight of victory, it was the weight of loss. The Revenant had died, but so had Syl. In her last moments she had been free, free of the ship's curse, free of the darkness that had controlled her for so long. I couldn't bring myself to feel happy. Instead, I felt a bitter emptiness. Syl's sacrifice had given me the light I needed to destroy the Revenant, but in the end, we had both lost. She had been lost to the ship, and I had been lost to the memory of her. The crew who survived were scattered, broken. The battle against the Revenant had torn through them, emotionally, physically, but most of all, spiritually. Some of them would never fully recover from what they had seen. The ones who had not perished in the chaos of the final confrontation wandered aimlessly, trying to piece together the wreckage of their lives. There would be no easy answers. No return to the people they had been before. But there was something new too, something fragile. Hope. We had survived. I sat alone on the edge of the shattered hull, watching the debris drift slowly away from us, like the remnants of some terrible dream. The stars were clearer now, brighter, as if the shadow that had clung to the sky was finally lifting. The light of distant suns poured across the blackness, reminding me that there was life beyond this wreck, beyond the Revenant's darkness. The hum of our remaining ship was quieter than it had ever been, but there was a steadiness to it, as if it were remembering how to live again. The crew was gathering, unsure of what would come next, but ready for it. There would be a funeral for the lost, a memorial for those who had fallen to the Revenant's curse. But the future was uncertain, and the past, that which haunted them, would never truly disappear. Captain Wren stood beside me, staring out into the abyss. She had aged in these final weeks. There was a weariness to her features, the weight of what she had witnessed in those last dark hours. "We made it," she whispered, her voice raw, almost hoarse. But at what cost? I didn't have an answer for her. None of us did. There would be no simple resolution. But there was a truth in her words, a truth that weighed on all of us. The cost of surviving, of defeating the Revenant, was far more than any of us had anticipated. Some of us might have been saved physically, but we had all been scarred, in ways we couldn't yet comprehend. "Does it matter?" I finally said, my voice echoing faintly in the stillness. "We're here. We can still go on." Wren glanced at me, her eyes tired but resolute. "We can. But can we ever be whole again?" I didn't know. None of us knew. But there was something in the air, something untouchable but real. It was a chance, a breath of fresh air in the aftermath of an unimaginable storm. It might take us years to rebuild, emotionally, physically, spiritually, but the dawn was breaking. The darkness was behind us, and in its place was the quiet, fragile light of possibility. We didn't speak anymore. There were no words needed. We just sat, watching the stars shimmer above us, knowing that the journey wasn't over yet. The Revenant might have been destroyed, but the universe was still vast. There would be more to face, more to overcome. But for now, there was only silence, a silence that felt like peace. Epilogue. The final light. The Revenant Drift was now a fading myth, a ghost in the cosmic winds. Those who survived its curse had scattered, each one taking the weight of their journey with them. Some sought answers, others sought redemption, but none would ever truly escape the shadows of the Revenant. It had scarred them in ways they could not fully explain, but it had also forged something new, something stronger. I stood at the edge of the command deck, staring out at the swirling nothingness, the void that stretched endlessly beyond the reach of our ship. It had been a week since the Revenant's wreckage had vanished. consumed by the abyss it had once ruled. The stars outside, distant and cold, seemed to whisper a language I could never quite understand. But I felt the weight of their gaze. In the aftershock of all that had transpired, it was the stars that gave me something I hadn't had in a long time: hope. Captain Wren had gone quiet in the days since the battle. Her shoulders had slumped with the burden of leadership, of watching. So many souls fracture in the face of such terror. She hadn't spoken much about Syl, and neither had anyone else. The grief was too fresh, too raw to be shared. But there were moments, fleeting and tender, when a glance between us would carry the unspoken truth. Syl's death had been necessary. Her death had been the key to the Revenant's fall. And yet, in those moments, there was always the bitter sting of loss. Syl had been a part of something greater than any of us could have imagined, and when she died, so did a part of us all. And now, the crew was scattered, like leaves caught in a wind they couldn't control. They all carried the same weight, the weight of surviving something they hadn't believed possible. They had all seen the end, stared into the eyes of something so dark and impenetrable that it had nearly swallowed them whole. The Revenant had been more than a ship. It had been a nightmare, a haunting presence that could not be killed by guns or steel, but only by something deeper, something that required a sacrifice no one had ever foreseen. But that wasn't all. That wasn't all we had gained from this battle. We had gained freedom. Freedom from the Revenant's curse. Freedom from its endless hunger. Freedom from the endless night that had clung to our souls. The ship was gone, but in the deepest corners of our minds, the ghosts it had birthed still lingered. The crew would go on, but they would never truly be the same. As I sat on the observation deck staring at the patchwork of galaxies and nebulae scattered across the universe, I could hear the faint hum of our engines beneath my feet. It was a soft, steady sound, a sound that reminded me of life, of the pulse of existence itself. The Revenant had been destroyed, and in its destruction, something had been awakened. The universe was vast, unyielding, and beautiful. The horrors we had faced were not the only things it held. There was beauty, too. There was more to find, more to explore. I closed my eyes for a moment, allowing the quiet to wrap around me, the silence of space now a companion I could bear. The winds of the cosmos carried whispers, faint and delicate, like echoes of forgotten worlds, of things lost to time. And yet, beneath it all, I could feel the presence of Syl, her sacrifice still, etched into the fabric of my soul. Her light had never been about brilliance. It had been the light of understanding, the understanding that even in the darkest moments, there is a choice. We can choose to face the shadow or succumb to it. Syl had chosen to face it, and in her final moments she had taken the Revenant's curse with her. The Revenant might have died, but Syl had lived on, her final act of courage echoing through the vastness, inspiring those of us left behind to find a way forward. The crew slowly returned to their posts. They had duties to fulfill, obligations they could not ignore. The survivors of the Revenant drifted apart, but the memory of that battle, of the lives we had lived and the lives we had lost, would be with us forever. We would carry it with us not as a burden, but as a reminder of how far we had come, how far we had fought. I turned my gaze back to the console. A small, blinking light caught my attention, an alert from the sensors. A new anomaly had been detected. Faint, but unmistakable. A signal. It was too early for another encounter, but as I studied the data, a chill ran through me. The Revenant might have been gone, but the universe had a way of remembering things. Its echoes lingered, and sometimes those echoes called back to us. With a deep breath, I activated the comms. The crew slowly gathered, uncertain of what would come next, but determined to face it. The future was unknown, but the journey continued. Out there, beyond the stars, more dangers would arise, more challenges, more choices. But this time, we would be ready. And no matter where the dark emptiness of space led us, we would remember the price we had paid. and the light we had found in the depths. The Revenant had taught us that there is a strength in surviving, and that sometimes it's the smallest light that can change the course of everything. As the ship's engines hummed in the background, I took one last look at the endless blackness before me, a quiet resolve settling over me. The Revenant Drift was gone, but we had survived, and that was enough for now. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know in the comments what ideas you would like the next story to be about. Please leave a thumbs up, share, subscribe, comment.